Since the birth of aviation, designers have sought new ways to meet the challenges of flight, some considerably more successful than others. One of the more intriguing and occasionally successful has been the use of the twin fuselage. It is sometimes difficult to distinguish between a twin fuselage and a twin boom aircraft. The P-38 Lightning is clearly a twin boom design, for example, whereas the F-82 twin Mustang is plainly a twin fuselage aircraft. I'll take the position that if the boom is designed to be occupied, or could be, then it counts as a fuselage. Twin fuselage aircraft have been designed for any number of reasons. Broadly, these are stability, a quick fix in time of need, load carrying, and, well, frankly, why not? Stability was an important issue in early flying boat design. A very early proponent was the Radley England Waterline II of 1913, in which there were twin floats, each having a tandem cockpit, supported by the wings with a central engine position. The most successful of the flying catamarans were the Savoia-Marchetti S55 and S66. The twin-hull design meant there were no outrigger floats, giving very good access to the aircraft from the shore or from tenders. It also gave the aircraft a lower draft, meaning they would float in shallower water than an equivalent single hull. The S55 flew in 1924 and was remarkably airworthy. It was used for numerous crossings of the Atlantic Ocean. These culminated in 1933 with the formation of 24 aircraft flying from Orbetello in Italy to Chicago, USA, a trip that took 48 hours to complete, most of the time with the aircraft maintaining a tight V formation. The flight was arranged by General Italo Balbo. His name is now used for large formations, typically of historic aircraft. The larger S-66 first flew in 1932. Each hull accommodated 7 seats, 2 sleeping couches and a lavatory. The cockpit was in the thick centre section of the wing. As well as being used as an airliner, the S-66 was briefly used as an air-sea rescue aircraft in the early years of World War II. Not everyone got this idea right though. In Russia, the Tupolev Ant-22 was of a similar twin-hull design, but even with 6 engines, its weight was too much and its performance was well below expectations, and it never entered service. The exigencies of war often garner new designs, and so it was with the Blackburn Twin Blackburn of 1915. Designed to counter the threat of Zeppelin raids, the Twin Blackburn had 2 fuselages, the pilot in one and the observer in the other, with no means of communication beyond hand signals. The requirement was to carry 72 500-gram incendiary Rankine darts, dropping them onto the Zeppelins from above in the hope of igniting their hydrogen gas bags. Sadly, the Twin Blackburn was so underpowered it couldn't climb above 8,000 feet, or 2,400 metres, with its puny 36 kilo bomb load, so this was reduced to 48 darts, or 24 kilos. 9 were built and they saw almost no service before being broken up in 1917. World War II saw a new rush of the twin fuselage designs, each meeting a requirement in a shorter time than designing a new aircraft from scratch. The first of these was the Heinkel HE-111Z, or Zwilling. Messerschmitt had created a huge cargo glider, the Me-321 Gigant. Initially they were towed into the air by 3 Bf-110 fighters in a highly dangerous formation called the Troika-Schlepp. As a better solution, Ernst Haeckel joined 2 HE-111H6 bomber fuselages together with a new centre wing section and an additional engine. Even with 5 engines, the HE-111Z was still unable to tow a fully laden Gigant into the air, so extra rocket boosters were added under the wings. Ultimately, the Gigant itself was fitted with 6 engines to create the Me-323. In 1941, the German Air Ministry issued a requirement for a new heavy fighter to replace the twin-engine Bf-110 in the Zerstörer or destroyer role. As a quick solution, Messerschmitt offered the Me-609, 2 fuselages of the failed Me-309 project, connected by a centre wing. The pilot would have sat in the port fuselage with the starboard side fared over. This project never left the drawing board. And that's unlike its stablemate, the Bf-109Z Zwilling, created by joining two Messerschmitt Bf-109F aircraft with a new centre section. As an interceptor, this would have carried 5 30mm cannon. As a tactical bomber, its load was 2,000 kilograms. One Bf-109Z was actually built, but it was damaged during an air raid in 1943, and the project was soon abandoned. In Italy, Savoia-Marchetti returned to their twin-fuselage concept with the SM-92 heavy fighter. This was based on the earlier SM-88, a twin-boom fighter with a central cockpit. That central cockpit was deleted and moved to the port fuselage. A prototype flew in 1943, but in the following year it was damaged in a friendly fire incident, having been mistaken for a P-38 Lightning. Soon afterwards it was destroyed during an air raid. But for many, the archetype of the twin fuselage fighter is the F-82 twin Mustang. It was originally designed as a very long-range fighter escort for the Boeing B-29 Superfortress on missions in the Pacific Theater, often exceeding 3,200 kilometers. Although it looks like two P-51s simply joined at the hip, it was in fact largely a new design with longer fuselage sections, different tail fillets, and the new centre wing section. The first test flight was made in June 1945, but within 2 months the war had ended. Development continued, but at a much reduced pace, until 1947, when the Soviet Union displayed their Tupolev Tu-4, a reverse-engineered B-29 from aircraft interned during the war. The twin Mustang was seen as the interim solution for the need for a long-range escort and an all-weather interceptor, until jet designs were ready to take over the role. To demonstrate its range, an F-82B flown by Colonel Robert Thacker flew non-stop and unrefueled from Honolulu, Hawaii to New York City, a distance of 8,129 kilometers, in just over 14.5 hours at an average speed of almost 560 kilometers an hour. F-82s deployed with Strategic Air Command in 1948. They were capable of flying from bases in the UK to Moscow and back again, with 30 minutes loiter time over the target, escorting Boeing B-50 or Convair B-36 bombers. Defending the continental US from Soviet bombers was a role taken on by radar-equipped P-61 Black Widow aircraft, although these were close to the end of their flying times. F-82F and G models were produced carrying a large radar unit underneath the centre wing section, with the dish in front of the propeller arcs to prevent interference. The pilot sat in the port cockpit, the radar operator in the starboard. Twin Mustangs replaced the Black Widow from late 1948. A similar situation existed in the Far East, with P-61s kept in service long after their planned retirement. With the outbreak of the Korean War in June 1950, F-82s were deployed. Used as air cover for the evacuation of US citizens, the first American aerial kill of the war was made when F-82s engaged 5 North Korean fighters over Kimpo Airfield, shooting down 1 Yak-11 and 2 Lavochkin LA-7s. When jets such as the P-80 Shooting Star and F-94 Starfire started arriving in theatre, the twin Mustangs took on the ground attack and photo reconnaissance roles. By mid-1952, the F-82s had been withdrawn and sent to resume strategic air defence, this time over Alaska. Many were corroded or had time-expired airframes. Attrition and lack of spares soon made their retirement inevitable. The last F-82 was retired from the infantry in November 1953. The twin fuselage concept was largely ignored after the war as being unnecessary. However, the idea was revived in the 1970s as a solution to the need for a large carrier aircraft. The US Space Shuttle was originally intended to have its own jet engines for control on re-entry and to make ferry flights from landing sites to launch facilities. But when this idea was abandoned, NASA needed a large aircraft capable of carrying the shuttle. John Conroy, designer of the outsized Pregnant Guppy and Super Guppy cargo aircraft, proposed a design based on 2 B-52 bomber fuselages with 4 large turbofan engines. The shuttle would be carried between the rings near the centre of gravity. Wind tunnel tests were thought promising, but the cost and flight testing of such new aircraft were thought prohibitive, and the aircraft called the Conway Virtus, was never built. Similar arguments prevented the construction of the Lockheed proposal for the same requirement, mating two of their vast C-5 Galaxy fuselages with a new centre wing. Ultimately, the Boeing 747 was converted to carry the shuttle orbiter in piggyback fashion. The ultimate of these airlifters could have been the Antonov AKS, made from two of the vast AN-225 Maria fuselages joined by a centre section to carry the air-launched Tupolev OOS spaceplane. Designs with 18 or more engines were shown, but the proposal was quickly deemed unfeasible. Only one Antonov 225 was ever built, initially carrying the Soviet Buran space shuttle on ferry flights. It was severely damaged in the early days of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. The idea of an air-launched space vehicle is of course very much current, and twin-fuselage aircraft appear to be the answer. In 2008, the scaled composites White Knight II flew for the first time. This is used to carry the Virgin Galactic's Spaceship Two suborbital vehicle to launch altitudes. Scaled composites built an even bigger carrier, the Stratolaunch or the Rock, which flew for the first time in 2019. At 117 metres or 385 feet, this has the largest wingspan of any aircraft ever flown. It was intended as a launch platform for boosters carrying small satellites to low Earth orbit. By early 2022, the aircraft had made 4 flights, but the Stratolaunch company had been sold, and the Rock will soon be supporting studies of hypersonic flight vehicles as a mothership. Twin fuselage designs continue to this day. The US Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, or DARPA, has proposed an chronoplan called the Liberty Lifter that will use ground effects to carry military payloads of 100 tons or more over long sea routes, although it should also be able to fly at up to 3,000 metres altitude. The twin fuselage idea is a long way from being forgotten.